It's a terrible, terrible thing what governments have done in terms of drugs. The idea that a 60-year-old woman can go out and, buy, I don't know, an eighth of weed and get nicked for it is frankly ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I think it serves a purpose, and it's about retention of power and control. I've always believed that.
Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan Guru-Murthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest this week has lived. Keith Allen is an actor, comedian, musician. He's had hit records, and he's sporting some excellent facial hair at the moment because you are currently playing Scrooge.
I am, yeah. Up at Alexander Palace.
What's been your approach to Scrooge?
Trying to remember the lines. That's about it, to be honest with you. I read the script and I just thought there is something about this fella. It's going to be a journey that will take you from not liking this man to actually having empathy with him. Not just because he's a nice guy, because I think you come to understand why he was like he was and why he is like he is. So that was what attracted me.
So what are your thoughts on why Scrooge became Scrooge?
Well, I think it was because his head was turned by Marley when he was younger, obviously, but also there's reference to the fact that he was dumped into a boarding school and he was left there during the holidays when everybody else went home. So he felt pretty isolated from a very early age,
Now, you were dumped in a boarding school.
I was indeed. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not the kind of actor that draws on past experiences to that degree. But yeah, when I read the script, there is this scene where he does talk about that, about, and I just remember clearly, I won a scholarship off the Navy because my dad was a submariner. And they went off to Singapore for about 2.5 years, 2 years, something like that. And I was at boarding school, and I clearly remember not having anywhere to go during the short holidays, during half term, funny enough. And I would just lie there on the playing field and look at aeroplanes, thinking, oh, they're going out there, I'm not. Yeah, so I have experienced.
Did you hate
something.
it?
Boarding school?
Yeah.
No, I loved it.
So because you went from boarding school to Borstal.
Yeah, there is
So something happened.
I tell you exactly what happened. I grew to like institutions, and I developed a whole relationship with institutions. And I mean this, which is I always saw them as being there to be undermined.
Why were you sent there?
Theft. Detention centre, theft, and Borstal, theft.
What was the difference between detention centre and Borstal then?
Detention centre was a closed environment. The screws were brutal, and as soon as you went in there, their aim is to divide and rule. You ran everywhere, you can walk anywhere, you had to jog everywhere. I worked in the concrete shop for 8 hours a day making paving stones, hardest work I've ever done in my life. They're brutal with you, they scream at you. There's no intention to try and reintroduce you into society as a better person. About 16, 17, something like that. And it was horrendous. And interesting enough, it taught me nothing. All it taught me was get out of here as soon as you can, keep your head down. Don't do anything that means your sentence would be made longer. So it did nothing for me, apart from I just hated it.
Was it physically brutal as well?
Oh my God, you have no idea. Murder ball, that was the game of the day. You'd be up at 6, cold shower, no warm water. It was horrible. It was just horrible. Yeah, and you worked. Well, I made concrete slabs. But Borstal, I went to an open Borstal, and there was a man there who had a great influence on my life, Mr. Dennis, his name was, and he was the PI, the physical instructor there. And I was very sporty as a kid. It was an open Borstal, didn't have fences around it, but very small ones. And you were given a choice when you went in. You could do a course in painting and decorating, in car mechanics. But I did the education course, just thinking it would be easier. And I'd left school illegally when I was 15 and a quarter, I think. So I didn't have any qualifications. It never bothered me at all. And I went into Borstal, did the education course, which they cram into about 5 months, 6 months, and got 6 O-levels.
And what did you want to do then?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had absolutely no idea. I had no ambition to do anything. But what I did like was having O-levels. I actually liked it. Didn't mean anything, but nothing about what I'd learned. It was just being able to say, yeah, I've got 6 O-levels. It was like, wow. So my dad said, well, what are you going to do with that then? No, I don't know. He said, well, why don't you go and get some A-levels? I thought, oh, wow, A-levels. Oh, I'll have a go at that. So I went to a college of further education where, interestingly enough, I met the other main mentor in my life, David Williams, who's now dead, rest his heart. He's my English teacher. And of course, I went there, and we became very, very close friends, actually, through music. He was a great jazz musician. And during the summer holidays, I used to run the boats up at Tenby. I used to run the mackerel boats up there. And of course, I missed the exams. I didn't go back for the exams. But the last winter that I was there, David had put me in what they call a gang show. And I'd never done any performing of any description at all. And he said, this is, they're just gags. They're comic little things. So I said, all right, I'll do that. And I did it, and I was quite good. And David said to me, look, why don't you go and audition for the Welsh College of Music and Drama? Now, you have to remember, back then, grants were available to go to the Welsh College of Music and Drama. And I have to say they were casting with a very, very fine net back then, because I went up there and I was, I had no skills at all. I just had a kind of quite an exuberant personality. And I remember going up there. Raymond Edwards was the guy who actually created the Welsh College of Music and Drama. And he was in the castle. That was actually in Cardiff Castle at the time. So I clambered up to the top of the turret, and there it was. He said, very good, Keith. I see you've got 3 A-levels. I just lied. Of course, yeah, 3 A's, sociology, English, and something else. He said, good. Okay, now I'd like you to stand on top of the coffee table, if you would. What? He said, I want you to imagine you're lost at sea on a raft. So I'm like standing there like this, He said, okay, very good. And you just kind of standing there like that. Now there's a serpent behind you. And I got in. I mean, absolute nonsense, got in. And like I say, they would have taken anybody because you were given a grant, and also the college was given money.
They would get paid.
Of course. And I went there. And the only reason I went there was because there were girls. That was the only reason. I had no intention of being an actor whatsoever. And even while I was there, I didn't want to be an actor. And, it's well documented I got expelled from there.
So were you a hellraiser then?
No, it's not hell-raising. I was head of the student union. But anyway, the one thing that I did in my position as president of the student union was insist that there were parking spaces for the students, which they refused. But my angle was, hang on a minute, without us, you wouldn't have a job. So, you know what I mean? We've got cars. And back then, I had 2 cars. It was ridiculous. I had my student grant. I worked in the steelworks in the Christmas holidays. You had money, So anyway, I had this car, and they said, no, we're not going to give you car parking spaces. So I went in one Sunday, jacked my car up, and took all the wheels off and just left it in the principal's parking space and refused to move it. And got...
That's what you got
Yes.
sent down for?
And it's, okay, fine, off you go. But funnily enough, I've now been given a fellowship of the Welsh College of Music and Drama. I went there when my mum and dad were alive. They were very proud of my gown and hat, But again, I had no intention. I didn't have any ambition, Not because I'm cool or anything like that. I didn't think. That's the truth. I didn't really think about stuff like that.
But you clearly didn't worry about how you were going to live then.
No.
Because you could always work and make money.
That was the thing. Back then, I was a coal miner. I was a butcher. I was a lithographic printer apprentice, an apprentice lathe turner, a tyre fitter. I bandsawed frozen chickens in half, a window cleaner. I mean, you wake up as a tyre fitter and then you go to bed on Friday as an apprentice lathe operator. That's what you did back then.
So when did you decide you wanted to be in entertainment?
I still didn't. I didn't. What happened was I came up to London and I got a job at the Victoria Palace as a stagehand because we squatted. We squatted the most expensive squat in Europe, which was we opened up 115 Eaton Square. So we had this house, there were 9 of us living there. The only squat, I think, in the world that had a sprung dance floor. It actually had a ballroom with a sprung floor. And it had lifts that worked, you know. We were there for 2 years. And 2 of the guys worked at the Victoria Palace. And they said, you know, one all right, fine. So I became a stage electrician, which didn't last because I famously walked on stage during the middle of Max Bygrave's show, naked, and got sacked from that. You know? And then Colin Bennett, I lived in Notting Hill with Mike Leigh, who was the director of the theatre. We had a flat in Notting Hill. The guy up above was Colin Bennett, a playwright and an author. He'd written a play called All Along the Watchtower, and it got commissioned by the ICA. And Colin said, "Why don't you be this character in it?" I was going, "What, me?" And he went, "Yeah, you'd be great." So I did. I had to go and meet the director. And I did it. And there were 2 people up for the part, me and Bob Hoskins, and I got the part, weirdly enough. And I did the play, and you know, I loved it. It was great. It was like, that was interesting. And then I'd kind of left the ICA, and I went over to Butler's Wharf, which was at the time a kind of artists' colony. It was very cheap. Andrew Logan was there. You know, lots of artists were there. And I met a woman called Mavis Taylor. We became boy and girlfriend. She was a stage designer. Anyway, she knew Ken Campbell really well. And there was a play that he wanted to do called Illuminatus, which opened the Cottesloe. So, cut a long story short, I got this part in Ken's science fiction opera, which we went up to Liverpool to put on with Jonathan Hyde was in it. I got a part as a waiter. I'd built the sets with Mavis Taylor. And he said, you can be the waiter, come in and you go walk across the stage with a tray. That's what you got to do. And give it to Neil Cunningham. It was, you know, it was just fun. It was fun. It wasn't a career. It was just fun, something to do. It was great. And you were meeting interesting people.
And has it stayed like that in your mind?
I think it has, to be honest. I feel a bit bad saying that.
Do this and do that and do things that are fun? Because you've had a very wide-ranging career in all sorts of ways, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think career might be the wrong word. And
life.
Yeah. And I'm not being clever at all. You know, this is not engineered in any way, shape or form. It's just the way I think. It's just the way I think, you know. I've never worried when I'm not working because there's a part of me that goes, well, go and earn some money, do something. And I've always done something else and I had no problem with it at all. You know, me and Alison, my first wife, we were skint. We went out and made sandwiches and drove round to people's houses. You know, and back then, pubs shut at 10 to 11. You couldn't buy anything in an off licence past 10:30. So once you were drunk, that was it, unless you had loads of booze at home. So we thought, actually, this is ridiculous. Why don't we load up with cans and then find out where the parties are and then just pull up at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, knock on the door and say, we made money. We did Sting's party. How about that? That was one of the first gigs we did. I mean, it just sounds kind of smug, but it's not. I've always, you know, of course, as you become an actor and you work as an actor, there is an element of that, but it doesn't occupy my mind to any degree.
You've mostly lived by your wits then, haven't you?
I've always done something, always.
I mean, you were very famous as sort of a high living, you know, this guy, hard drinking, drug taking, blah, blah, blah.
But I hardly drink. The only time I drink is to get drunk. I don't ever drink unless I don't sit in pubs and have a pint. I've never ever done it. I can't do it. I don't know why people do it, to be honest with you. When I first started taking drugs, cocaine, I could make a gram last 6 weeks. You know, and I don't have an addictive personality. A lot of my mates fell by the wayside and ended up in rehab. I didn't mind not having drugs or drink. It doesn't affect
So
me.
drugs never became a problem for you?
Never has. And I took too much of them, but that was my responsibility. Do you know what I mean? That was my choice. And, you know, I did mess about.
So what's your attitude towards drugs now? I mean, and the role in society that they have?
I remember back in the 70s, kind of mid-70s, when you still had this kind of Victorian moral approach or position about drugs, you know, and it was tied up with kind of, I don't know, religion or, you know, those four cornerstones. And I remember thinking, they're talking like, you know, this is just a kind of, it's all about the youth, you know, taking drugs, and we have to protect the youth. Whereas I was working on building sites with foremen who were smoking weed in the middle of the 1970s. And you're thinking, lots of people are taking drugs. What are you talking about? It's not this kind of crisis over here. It's kind of, it's embedded in our DNA for a lot of people, you know. So I've never fell for the hype about drugs at all. I genuinely believe that if you have legalized alcohol, then you have no position whatsoever about the legality of taking drugs, none whatsoever. It just falls flat in my book.
Because alcohol's also addictive, you mean?
It's not just that. What you have to do with drugs, you legalize it because hopefully you take it out of the hands of gangsters. Okay, you tax it, you make money. You know, they've proved this in America. I'm not saying it works all the time in America, but, you know, it's made a difference.
And all drugs? I mean, America
All
obviously
drugs.
have legalized cannabis in many states.
It's a terrible, terrible thing what governments have done in terms of drugs. It's terrible. Because my theory on it all is they need that market. They need it to exist. As long as you've got that world, you can employ more police, you can employ more weapons, you can employ people to watch you. You know, you've always got the argument that we're protecting you. It's not true. It's just not true. And it's childish. Actually, I think it's childish. The idea that a 60-year-old woman can go out and, you know, buy, I don't know, an eighth of weed and get nicked for it is frankly ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I think it serves a purpose, and it's about retention of power and control. I've always believed that.
Are you're suspicious of authority and government in general, or just over this?
It's not suspicious. It's not just authority and government. It's about influence. You know, it's about follow the money. Just always follow the money. Yeah.
I mean, because you started off saying, you know, you like sort of
institutions.
yeah,
to be
undermining institutions. Yeah.
I've never had a problem. I must be one of the few people that have been, you know, in need of care and protection, have been in care homes, have been in Borstal, comprehensive, public school, detention centre and prison. I've done the lot.
Well, one of the weird things that you did was make a couple of documentaries funded by Mohammed Al-Fayed.
Yeah.
Who has now died, obviously. But and one of them was about Diana and her death.
Well, it wasn't.
No?
No, it wasn't. No. That film...
I mean, we don't know, because...
No. That film was not... that film was about the inquest. You know, it's very convenient for people to say, oh, you know, is it all a kind of conspiracy theory about it? No. It wasn't. It was a very forensic, analytical, detailed look at that inquest. That's what that film was. Now, obviously, that has to be served by information, you know, surrounding and regarding her death and her life.
But what did you think of Fayed? Because he was an extraordinary man.
Yeah, he was an extraordinary man. Listen, and he had his demons without a shadow of a doubt. And he would have come up nose first with the establishment and their loathing of people like him. He would have just, and that's why he went, I'm going to buy your biggest shop. How about that? Which is, and also I'm a Fulham fan. He was great for Fulham. So
did you like him? Or
yes,
or was he a, you know,
no,
source of funding basically? Or
no. He was. He could be very kind
and quite sinister. People said.
Listen, people like him have got power, and they know how to use it.
But he didn't tell you what to say. You know, he didn't come up to you and say, I want you to make a film about this and say
no.
Tell you what to do.
No, we talked him into it, me and Victor Lewis Smith.
But it didn't see the light of day ultimately because you
Thank
wouldn't
God,
compromise.
I love it. I love the fact it didn't. Millions of people have watched it on the internet.
Because you wouldn't do what the lawyer said you had to
No,
do and make
the
changes.
87 changes, yeah. Ridiculous.
You're doing a musical, aren't you, in the new year, Rehab?
Yes. Yeah, which opens, I think, January the 11th. We did it in a very small little space over in Latimer Road last year, and it was very successful. The songs they're showstoppers. They're brilliant, but it's also got in fact, a lot of my friends who have been in rehab came to see it. They came down a little, not a coach load on, but a few car loads came down from where I live, and a lot of them are in rehab, and two of them cried. You know, it so resonated with their experience. So it's not in any way a sensationalist piece at all. It's very warm, very moving, and very funny. And the song, what more do you want? The songs are brilliant, you know. So, yeah.
I mean, music's been obviously a big part of your life as well.
It's weird. My relationship with music it's not music, actually. My relationship with hearing music is very odd because I spent 7 years nearly squatting, you know, when I first came to London. So you never have any baggage with you. You just don't. So I never had a record collection. I never did, because you were never going to cart that around London with you. So I would only hear music either on the radio, at parties, gigs. Gigs was a big source of music. So I've never had a record collection, ever. Isn't that weird? It's very
But
odd.
you've had a hit record.
Yeah, but I mean, Christ. I've had two, actually.
Two. Well,
World in Motion.
World in Motion,
and
of course.
Vindaloo.
Yeah. And did you write what was your role in World in
I wrote
Motion?
the words.
You wrote the words.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wrote the rap, obviously.
And how come? Like, why would New Order sort of get you to do that?
Because at the time I was up in Manchester doing a series called Making Out. And it was about 88, I think. Of course, Hacienda was in full swing. And I used to go down the Hacienda a lot, you know. Got to know Tony Wilson really well. And the band. But I wasn't a New Order fan. I just knew them, you know, as people. Anyway, a guy who worked at the FA he was Jimmy Armfield's son or nephew. I can never remember his first name. Anyway, he was head of, I don't know, promotion or something at the FA. And historically, it would always be the cups coming home and all that kind of stuff. And he just thought, no, and he was a huge New Order fan. He just had this idea that he would ask New Order. And of course, what was great, nobody at the FA knew who New Order was, so he could have said anything, really. And Tony thought about it, and it's such a kind of Tony Wilson thing to go, yeah, all right. And to the, I think, the horror of the band, you know, what? Because I don't think they know very much about football. In fact, I know they don't. So I said, well, we don't know a lot about football. He said, I know who knows a lot about football, Keith Allen. Oh, all right. So, yeah, they asked me if I'd do it. And I didn't even take it seriously, to be honest with you. The first verse I wrote was, E is for England. England starts with E. We'll all be smiling when we're in Italy. No, we can't do that. And the rest is history, you know.
Do you think that's the secret of your success, ultimately, not taking things seriously?
Yes, absolutely. Although, having said that, I do take things very seriously. Like acting, I actually do take it very seriously. You don't think I do, but I do.
When you're doing it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely, yeah.
And if you could change the world in any way, how would you change it?
I would go to war with the petrochemical industry by making farmers grow hemp everywhere. Yeah, you would have to hit. I would first of all, I'd become a benign dictator, which I think they're the best, and then I would issue a diktat that would say you have to grow this amount of hemp.
Why?
The reason why is it can replace an awful lot of plastic, an awful lot of plastic. You know, they use it in the aviation industry. NASA uses it. It would undermine the whole. Well, it would get you asking questions about why was it made illegal. And of course, it was all tied up in the 50s with the war against drugs. So yeah, it can be, you know, it can be eaten. It can be used to build houses. You can make cars with it. You can drive aeroplanes with it. There's so much you can do with hemp.
Clothes, shoes.
Everything.
Yes.
Just grow it. Grow it and refine it. Let's see what happens.
Are these the sorts of conversations you have with your kids? Because a lot of people will know you as Lily's dad.
No, you're joking. I spend most of the time like that. Not completely, that's not true. No, funnily enough, I think that one about hemp, they would have themselves anyway. But actually, that's a lovely thing to know, you know. That it wouldn't be a surprise to Teddy if I said that. Because she would actually go, yeah, I know. So that's encouraging.
Keith Allen, thank you very much indeed.
That's a pleasure. Thank you.